Purple Cow Copywriting, Make Your Message Remarkable. Presented for you today by Ingenuity Marketing Group's Rachel Gold and Christine Nelson. As we get started, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping tasks here. First, to thank you for being here. I know we're all busy. There's a lot of things we could be doing, and we really appreciate your commitment to putting some extraordinary content out in the world because we love extraordinary content. So thank you for being here on our webinar. At any point, you are welcome to ask us questions. We love questions, and you'll see over on the GoToWebinar control panel that is probably on the right side of your screen that there is a section for questions. You can type a question to us, and we'll try to get to those as quickly as possible. So at any point, just send us questions, and we'll answer them. Also, for people who might have to leave early or for people who want others in their organization to see this webinar, we are going to post it online, the recording. It should be up by tomorrow. It will be on our marketingyourpeople.com website in the webinars section. And we'll also be putting it out on all of our social media channels, a link to that. So it'll be pretty easy to find this webinar tomorrow if you do want to review parts of it or pass it along to other people. And then lastly, I just want you to know that this is going to be a fairly broad webinar that covers a lot of topics in marketing, in online content writing, but it's not a 101. So I hope you're not here to hear the latest AP versus Chicago grammar tips. We can do that if you want to hear that, request a future webinar, but this is going to be a little bit more advanced, really looking at marketing strategies in copywriting and some of what's cool today. All right, so this is me, Rachel. I'm a communications consultant with Ingenuity Marketing Group. And I'm not going to go through all the bullet points here. You can see them for yourselves, but I just want to highlight that one thing that's important to know about me in the context of this webinar is that I am a big fan of technology, but I'm also very pragmatic. So I spend a lot of time looking at ways for professional service firms to be posting content online, using it in their social media channels in a way that really works for them and is practical in the day-to-day sense. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm here with Christine Nelson.
Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today. I am Christine Nelson. I am a communications consultant at Ingenuity, and my main job is to work with professionals and help them gain visibility and then use that visibility to attract the ideal clients and customers. At Ingenuity, we actually offer 4 service lines to help you achieve that strong market position and visibility, which then will lead to faster growth. Rachel and I are both on this webinar today because we work in the communications arena for Ingenuity, helping brilliant people sound brilliant. We've worked with clients very open to writing for marketing purposes and those who are resistant to it. As you know, marketing copywriting is very different from writing for an academic journal or for your colleagues. It's tied to reputation and services that you want to be known for. And we find that professionals will resist for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that they aren't trained or they've chosen a field so that they don't have to write. And when they're confronted with the opportunity, like we like to call it an opportunity to write, they're very resistant to it. The other reason that they might resist is that they are trained to write and they are married to that style. And it could be a style that they learned in law school, for example, or maybe they learned a certain journalistic style or English writing style, and they're resistant to the more proactive interpreting information or sharing your opinion style that marketing copywriting requires. So they all have some things in common, though. We're finding they're facing price pressure, they're facing stagnant growth, they're facing a need to recruit the best talent or attract firms for acquisition. So our goal with this webinar and the answer to why bother is that we're wanting to help you whether you are in marketing for your firm or if you're a professional on the webinar today to engage your audiences in new ways using both copywriting techniques and technology. So with that, let's talk about our Purple Cow theme.
All right, so the purple cow comes from the Seth Godin book, A Purple Cow, Transform Your Business by Being Remarkable. And, you know, in the book, and the idea in general talks about combining uniqueness and value. So I grabbed this great purple cow picture from online. You can see that they have it defined as the act of being original and remarkable. But I also want to really drive home the part that you have to follow up that originality, that uniqueness with value. And you can even think of that in the phrase purple cow. The purple is the part that stands out, but the cow itself has to be valuable. It has to be delivering products content-wise that your readers want. So really putting the two of those together. And we've got a quote here from Seth Godin from the book, where he sort of describes what he talks about. The system is pretty simple. Go for the edges. Challenge yourself and your team to describe what those edges are, not that you'd actually go there. And then test which edge is most likely to deliver the marketing and financial results you seek. And in that context, he's looking at overall business transformation, new product lines, all of that. We're going to really narrow this down just to talk about copywriting and content. But you can see even inside of content, you want to look for the edges. You know, what are the ways that other firms are not talking about these issues? What's unique? And I also like about this quote that he is focused on results. You know, which ways of writing are most likely to deliver the marketing and financial results that you seek. So that gives us a strong context.
And we've compiled for you here a few examples of what we would consider purple cow copywriting. Some of them are a little more on the edge than others. And in this first example, this is from a banking website. And as you might see, some of you grammar queens out there, being a purple cow means sometimes bending the rules of grammar to invoke an emotional response. So this is on the home page of a banking website. And the bank was trying to really speak directly to that business owner who's a bit of a maverick, who really wants that personal attention. They want someone to understand them, to really get where they're coming from. So the website is painting a picture of, you know, if you come to this bank, you're going to have a different experience. And so the first paragraph, you notice, you know, these are not all full sentences, but as you read them, you start to have this feeling of, oh, this could be what I will experience going to the bank.
And Chris and I had a long conversation about this example and the importance of understanding the rules of grammar before you start bending them. There's a big difference between content where someone clearly doesn't have a good grasp of the rules versus content where, for stylistic reasons or to create an impact, someone is bending the rules. And I think this stood out so much in the world of bank websites that it was picked up by a magazine, wasn't it, as an example of trends in the banking industry and how banks are changing and becoming more personable.
Correct, and how the next generation of banking leaders are trying to market themselves to a new audience. The next example that we have, we pulled up because it's talking about the people, your experts, who you need to come along with you when you're providing remarkable content. So Purple Cow is also about engaging your people to step out of their comfort zone and show some personality. And in this example from an accounting firm, the professionals themselves actually either dressed up or showed some personal side of themselves that people might not otherwise know about when they're thinking about an accountant or a CPA. And the way that it was done was very consistent throughout all of the media.
Yeah, if you look at Fried Maxick online, you'll actually see they were very good in the social media arena, carrying this kind of campaign through. And this same look and feel is not only on their website that you see here, but in their ads, on their Facebook page banner. It's very consistent, and you can see it all kind of falls out of their tagline, trust earned. It's a great example, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. We just wanted to tease you with some examples first. We'll talk about how this shows credibility. You know, when you think of that concept of trust earned, which is kind of their core message that they want to get across everywhere, well, how do you show that they are an organization that's earning trust? And one great way to show that is to show their people, which is eye-catching, and it really drives all of their content then from that single, simple core concept, and that's one strong way to generate a lot of content.
And we showed this example also to give you a sense of how different types of copy can play well together. So you can see the use of headlines, you can see the use of the logo and tagline, and then to the right, there's an entry point to learn more about Michael and get into his bio. So when you're thinking in terms of copywriting and design, you want to make sure that all of those types of copy will marry and play well together. Now this next example came out of a law firm, and I brought it up. I mean, it's not visually stimulating, but it's an excerpt from an article that was shared in a business publication, and it gives you a sense of compromise, because we know that our very brilliant experts out there want to be seen as experts, but they also want to make sure they're crossing all their T's and dotting their I's when they're explaining an issue. So this is an example of compromise where we started out with 3 paragraphs explaining all of the ins and outs of high-tech and EHR and Medicare and Medicaid. And in working with the attorney, we were able to boil it down to a paragraph that, as quickly as possible, gets to what it means to the audience. So whether healthcare providers have adopted electronic health record technology or not, there are some incentives for them to do so, and there's also a deadline coming up. And this attorney was actually very open to editing and proofing and making sure. He actually had a good writing style to begin with, which is helpful. But that ability to be open-minded to the final product and who your audience is a very important trait when you are recruiting, so to speak, some of your experts to be part of the copywriting opportunity and challenge.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we see with a lot of our clients who have they have a strong marketing department, but then the challenge is it's kind of like herding cats to get all their experts on the same page about stylistically how the writing is going to come out to attract an audience, and really going beyond just the facts into that place of meaning and interpretation.
So Purple Cow really means translating complex information into a form that your audience can use to take action. Explaining what it means to them brings the value. So speaking of price pressures and slow growth, there are reasons that your copy and the content you share with various audiences needs to stand out. You're in a very crowded marketplace. We find in all professional service industries they are dealing with this sense of commoditization, that when there are requests for proposals, it's so boiled down to the bottom line of price that it's hard to differentiate. Shorter attention spans from your audience. They have so much that they can look at in a day. Their email inboxes are full. They want to scan and look at things quickly. Your competition is getting smarter. They're using some of the same tools and techniques that you want to use. So being able to be in similar channels and stand out is important. Sales cycles are longer. Professionals are still developing their sense of what it means to sell and provide good client service and cross-selling. And also we're finding that clients are going mobile. According to Marketing Sherpa, which is a website that surveys customer response to marketing strategies and technologies, almost 50% of the businesses surveyed in December said their customers were transitioning to mobile in order to interact with the company. We would see this happening in professional circles after the B2B market, but it's definitely something to keep in mind when you are redesigning your website as a marketing hub for clients and referrals, and how you should write based on online and mobile technology moving forward.
One of the things that I think is one of the coolest opportunities is actually the way that good content and search engine optimization are coming together. So this is a quote from Search Engine Watch, who said that over 3 years and hundreds of billions of consumer interactions, we've identified that these 3 indicators, bounce rate, time on page, and number of pages visited, correlate to higher visitor happiness, which correlates to more sales and more loyalty. And they said, you know, if someone basically, and this is B2C products, but I think it holds true as for services as well, if they look at 10 pages, the probability that they'll take some other action to become an active lead for you rises about 100%. So under 10 page views and over 10 page views, you have this 100% jump in the likelihood that they're going to contact you, request more information, or get themselves into your lead system in some way. So, you know, how do you get someone to read 10 pages of your website? Great content is one of the perfect strategies to do that. And there's this virtuous cycle going on right now online because Google and the search engines are looking at the amount of time people spend on your site, how many pages they click through, how much time they spend on those pages. And the more time you have on your site, time on page, like they're talking about in this quote, number of pages visited, the higher you're going to rank in the search engines and the more visitors you're going to get. So if you take the time to produce great content specifically for your website, more time on site leads to better SEO, leads to more visitors who are spending yet more time on your site, and so on. It keeps cycling. So that's a strong case for having some really great content online. And if you're in a position where you're trying to get a lot of buy-in in your firm for spending the time to do that content, I think these kinds of concrete details about how it really does lead to better web traffic and more lead conversion can help you out.
In addition, this next slide is another important way to showcase the importance of copywriting. Copywriting can help you build your reputation in certain services and niches and help you gain more visibility. And in the end, the purple cow is really a premium market position. So you're trying to strengthen your market position with the right message or hook and proper timing. You are drawing in new clients. This, what we're finding, makes it far easier for your salespeople or people who are working in business development to call warm prospects as opposed to cold prospects because they are already aware of you. They've seen your copywriting, your content, and they have warmed up to the idea that you could be the perfect firm for them. So it's a much easier conversation when you move into the sales area. So we'd like you to be able to use this first section as tools, information to further your marketing goals, or as a professional to talk with other partners, other leaders about its importance. So you might say to yourselves, I'm just trying to get our professionals to write at all, let alone write well. If they would just give me something I could run with it for our newsletter or our blog or our website. We understand your pain. We've been there. So before you can produce remarkable copy, you need to get the experts on your side. The fact is they may not realize the huge potential, or they're happy with the status quo. So we've provided you with some things to talk about with your professionals as you are working with them to create some copy. Think about what are some of their current problems. Is it time? Is it pressure to bring in business? Is it just the changing nature of their industry? What are some of the problems that they don't even know they have? So for example, being up to speed with technology, understanding what LinkedIn is and its potential for improving their networking opportunities. What's the cost of not growing the business? Is that going to impact their potential to get a buyout in the future? Is it going to impact their promotion? What benefits of copywriting don't they know about? So having that conversation first and understanding their viewpoint could help you further move your goals along to start producing some good copy and content for your various channels.
And speaking of questions, this would be a great time if you have specific questions about, you know, in-house challenges, how you do generate more content, how you get partners to write expert articles. We would love to hear them, so feel free to send us questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask you some more questions. So this is a way when you're thinking of how do I generate the content, what do I write about? Okay, great, you've told us we want to generate all these articles and blogs and so on. How do I do that? So one way is to get in your clients' heads. What are their pains? What are the challenges that they're dealing with? And one way to find this out is to talk to your partners and say, what questions do you get over and over again from clients? And start answering those questions, because those tie directly into your clients' pains. What are you trying to sell? It's always a good idea to know what the value is that you're offering that's connected to this piece of content you're creating. And specifically, what are the benefits? You know, obviously, if you're rolling out a new service area, you don't just want to talk all about that service area. That's kind of boring. You want to talk about what are the benefits to clients if they engage your firm to provide this service. What does it look like when it's finished and delivered? So that's another way to get in their heads. What's the cost of not connecting your value to their pain? So really think about that process of their pain, your value. What happens if they don't get it, both internally to your company, and what happens to them? How will the content translate to helping clients do well? So really thinking through, you know, when we work with a client, when we deliver the service for a client, how does that help them? What does it look like over in their world? And what's the cost to clients or prospects of not choosing you? Sometimes you're competing with the status quo. And when that's the case, when a company decides not to pull the trigger and not to bring you in, and another year passes, what is the cost to them? Because when you can explain that in a piece of content, it becomes very powerful.
So leading back to that example from the attorney on electronic health records, and this is a big trend in healthcare, for example. So he could be speaking to organizations that are still contemplating it. They know the deadline's approaching. He could be speaking to organizations who have adopted it, but they've dealt with a lot of problems, and they're concerned about compliance. They're concerned about patient privacy. What are some of the ways that they could get in trouble? And so having that article out there where he is providing some how-tos really sets him up as an expert they could call and learn more, and potentially provide him with their business to move forward.
So in addition to really getting over in your client's world, there's another way to create great content, which is to use the principles of sticky ideas. This is from the book Made to Stick, and you may have heard me talk about this before if you've been in my other webinars, but it remains one of the most powerful ways that I've ever found to think about how to do marketing content. These are 6 principles that the authors of Made to Stick found caused an idea to stay around, to stick in the mind. It was simple or core, and you see that, for example, in the Freed Maxick Trust Earned. That is a simple concept. That is the core of who they are as a firm. Unexpected or surprising. Also, in our Freed Maxick example, you saw an accountant wearing plate mail. That was surprising. That was unexpected. Concrete detail. So really boiling it down, like on the last slide when we talked about, you know, what are the benefits or what are the pains to your clients, really getting into the details of it. I mean, you can say cash flow, and that doesn't mean as much as saying you will spend thousands of dollars in late fees or you will not get discounts. That's a more concrete detail.
Or we managed to save our clients 50% of their energy costs based on this green design concept.
Exactly. Credibility and concrete detail really go hand in hand. Credibility can have to do with your credentials. It can also have to do with client case studies. When a client talks about how great your firm is, that's inherently credible. Emotional, and when I say emotional, I don't mean histrionic or melodramatic or over the top. There are some nice subtle ways to do emotion. Remember, curiosity is an emotion. Warmth is an emotion, generosity. So some of those softer, easier emotions, still evoking them.
And I think if you look back to that banking example, you'll see that that is, for a bank, which you wouldn't typically think of as being emotional, money is very emotional, and that's what the bank wanted to portray, that, you know, people can feel insecure, they can feel excited, they can feel motivated, they can feel worried about money. and how do you present a warm and comfortable place for them to talk about it.
And lastly, stories. It's easier to remember a story than it is to remember a set of facts. And that's why I have a hamburger and some fatty breakfast food over on the right side, because there's a story they tell in Made to Stick about a health organization years ago that wanted to illustrate how completely unhealthy movie popcorn was back when they used to do it in coconut oil, which is super fatty. So instead of saying a large bucket of movie popcorn contains, 70 whatever grams of fat, what they did was they called a press conference, and out on the table they laid an entire day's worth of fatty food, a heavy breakfast, a burger for lunch, a steak for dinner, and on the other side of the table they put a large bucket of movie popcorn. And they said this bucket of movie popcorn is the same amount of fat as this whole day's worth of fatty foods. So you can see that's surprising, it's simple, it's concrete, it's credible. I believe the emotion it's evoking is disgust, and it's a mini story. They're kind of evoking a miniature story there. So this is something that almost every professional services firm I see could do better. Could find ways to say, if our tax benefits, if our legal help is the equivalent of the fatty bucket of movie popcorn, only on the positive side, what's the day's worth of food that it also represents? What are the concrete, visceral things that businesses and individuals get when they get these services? So encouraging you to keep digging down into that question.
And that reminds me, Rachel, of the trend toward using more video when you are sharing content. There is still copywriting that's required for the video in order to tell that story. But adding that visual element, whether it's photos or video, can bring the emotion to the forefront and tell the story in a way that engages people for a longer time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we're getting back to this idea of writing again for internet and mobile readers. And at first, we had the impression that writing for internet or mobile meant short. And that's not necessarily the case, and Rachel can talk more about that in terms of technology, but you want to consider creating content copy of varying lengths. So you might have small vignettes of testimonials, you might have a small client story, but then juxtapose that with one of your experts writing on a topic of interest to that audience. And as you design how you will share this information, you can provide various access points for clients to get into your information. So for example, if you have a bio where you are introducing the expert, and then if there is additional content for them to click into, it might be a longer article, it might be a client story. So again, as we were talking about, helping the content play together well in how you're presenting it. And I'm going to show a couple examples later of how that looks, not only online but also in print. We want to stay away from jargon. Every industry has its jargon. Rachel and I will present the idea of SEO to professionals, and they don't realize that it means search engine optimization. Or we'll talk about some type of marketing concept such as
branding.
Branding is a word that we're learning to stay away from because it just really doesn't mean anything to most professionals. So finding different ways to explain something without using your industry jargon is important. No regurgitating. What I mean by that is when you have a regulation or a law or a requirement or a restriction that you want to share with people that's going to be important for them going forward, it's not necessary to restate the entire law or regulation. You can introduce it and talk about why it's important, but then go on to explain what it means. So the majority of your copy should be talking about what it means to that audience. Think about how you would explain it to someone in person. If you're sitting down with a client and you're saying, this such and such tax law is coming up, I don't think that you would pull out the tax code book and read it to them verbatim. You would explain why it would pertain to their certain situation. So when you're writing, that's how you want to present the information to them. And it feels different writing it down than speaking it because you know that it's going to be out there potentially forever. At the same time, though, you can employ editors who can help you make sure that it is really in a format and it's accurate and is helpful for your audiences. For online versions of copywriting, we're recommending introducing key phrases into the copy so that it can be searched by search engines. And there are ways to do that without it sounding very robotic. You can still keep things conversational by not overusing the key phrases, but introducing them here and there where they make sense.
And more, you know, there's a meld between people looking for a phrase online and Google prioritizing that phrase in their search engine. So if you know, you can use Google's keyword tool to find out what people are searching for. And that may actually drive some of the content you want to create or the way that you put together your headlines and subheads so that people can quickly see what this article is really about and if they want to read it.
People might be searching for something such as business valuations, strategic planning, green design, and you can find out specifically what those phrases are, and they can really spark some great ideas for you.
Also, you really want to break up the content. People scan when they read online. They don't read the way that we read when we read a book or even a physical newspaper. People tend to scan through internet text. So if you're writing for an online crowd, you definitely want to make sure you break up your content so that they can quickly get the highlights of what you're saying, whether that's photos, lists, numbers like statistics, and some nice clear subheads. And you really want to make sure that the subheads are active, that they're pulling someone through the document, and that if someone's interested in only a part of what you're talking about, they can quickly skip to that subhead and read it.
And Rachel was creating a bit of an inside joke here on our slide where she put some of the information in bullets so that they would stand out for you.
I figured I couldn't say use lists without using a list.
It's a subliminal example for you.
And before we go on, I want to just tack on the varying lengths piece that Chris mentioned. With some of the Google algorithm changes of the last couple years, it used to be short content was all the rage. Now you can definitely do some longer articles. Obviously, that increases the amount of time someone spends on the page if they read the whole article. So if the whole thing's helpful, that helps your search engine results. And Google does appreciate having some longer pages on your site. So you don't have to make it all short. All right, now we've got a couple more examples to talk about what we've gone through so far. This is from Ide Bailey. And I just thought this was a really wonderful example of getting over into the client's point of view. So it's very clear if you have a pain point about healthcare reform, you are so going to be drawn to this content. You know, it says here the Healthcare Reform Act includes penalties for large employers that do not offer affordable health insurance starting January 1st, 2014. So immediately, if I'm someone for whom that could be a concern, I'm drawn in. And then you have these great buttons, read more, we can help. And on the whole, I really like the way that this gives me as a user a lot of different clear options to click on and to go into. So you can see they've spent time creating content, and they also thought through how are we going to present this content to the viewer so that people can quickly find what they're interested in and dive more deeply into that content.
It's almost like on your homepage you are offering breadcrumbs to people to lead them to the substance of your site. And so this example is also showcasing the importance of short vignettes, of headlines, of icons, visuals that go with the words so that you are attracting your audience in different ways, your visual learners as well as your people who read through a little more deeply. Now I put this example on as well because we want to talk about print and collateral, obviously. Collateral, that's another marketing term.
Good jargon.
Print materials that you might use to market your firm or to share with prospects and referral sources. So this is an engineering firm brochure that has been designed for multiple purposes. It can be a portfolio for various interchangeable content, but it's also defining a market position. So by the colors, by the design, you have a feel of, building materials and strength and green. And on the interior panel of the brochure, you will see short vignettes on the services of the engineering firm. So no matter what piece of information you are putting together for your firm, use it as an opportunity to go beyond listing your office locations to including key messages, perhaps a client testimonial. Colors and headlines should be easy to scan. And it's minimal copy, but it has a big impact. You're looking for big impact. You're looking for what it means to that audience, not this is about us. We. No, we don't want a whole lot of information about we, because if they're looking at your information, they already know about you. They want to know what you can do for them. And again, back to the purple cow, value. What value are you sharing in this information for them?
All right, this is another technique for generating content. So we're kind of looking at, I know a big challenge sometimes, not if you're natively a writer yourself, but if you're working with people in your firm and they don't know what to write, where to start, what content should we be producing. Another way to approach that is to alienate someone. So here Vicki Kunkel says, if you want to be appealing, you have to be ready to stand by something you really believe, and you have to be willing to express your opinion boldly and unapologetically. To expand your base of support, you have to reduce your appeal. Identifying exactly who you don't want to align with you is just as important, if not more important, than identifying whom you want to support you. It's counterintuitive, and we talk to a lot of firms where we say, well, who is this for? And they say, well, it's for everybody. In today's internet world, almost nothing is for everybody. There's always somebody who is not in your audience. So when you think about, who should not be in this piece, who should this piece turn off or turn away? So for example, if you're writing a piece about accounting in the cloud, you might want to alienate the people who don't use any technology at all. This is only for people already using accounting software, and that gives you a place to start. Or, for example, you might decide, okay, if there are companies out there who do not have in-house counsel, I'm not talking to them. I'm only talking to the companies that have in-house counsel. That's who I want to work with. That gives you a strong sense of who you're writing for and who you aren't writing for, and can really refine the content that you're creating.
And this shows the importance of marrying your copy with your marketing plan, with your overall firm strategy. And oftentimes, if you can create almost a niche-based copywriting or editorial plan or media plan, you're probably going to get more buy-in internally from your experts who are the most motivated. Perhaps it's a new niche that you are working in. Perhaps someone has just become the lead of a practice area and they're very motivated to build that practice. That's where you have that in to start generating very specific and directed content. And if you told your professionals who are motivated and interested in doing this, if they only had to write 2 or 3 articles a year, and you could leverage that into several marketing opportunities, do you think that would be reasonable to them? And I'm talking to the professionals on this webinar who are interested in doing this for their own practices and their own services, and also the marketing people out there. If you knew that you could create, 2 to 3 articles or 3 to 5 pieces of really solid content and promote it in various ways, it would just make your job a lot easier. Your energy would be used more effectively. So, milking the cow, this example shows how you can take information and you can share it on a blog, you can share it on a news feed, you can share it on bios, you can push it over through your social media. And you're creating several avenues to communicate with prospects, clients, and referrals. So you're maximizing all of that time and energy spent. And I think this is an important point to remember and also share with people, that you're not going to have to every week create something new. It's about creating really quality content and copywriting and then sharing it in various channels and ways so that it's leveraged very well and strongly. And the more people see it, The more often they see you, it builds that reputation and visibility that you're after.
And then here's our last tactic for the tactics section. We talked about how curiosity is an emotion, and you can see a great example here using that in the headlines. You can use it in subject lines and in leads. So thinking about evoking people's curiosity, and one great way to do that, which you can see here, is they're using a metaphor. So they're talking about, this is about wine tastings and what they have to do with the economy. So as soon as I saw this headline, I actually had to read the article because I was like, oh, that's interesting. You don't think of pairing economic indicators and wine tastings, and now I'm really curious. And they also had on their blog a foam with your coffee blog that talked about coffee drinks as a metaphor to talk about financial issues. So if you have something complex and you really need to boil it down for a non-expert audience, finding a fun, surprising metaphor can be a great way to do it. It could be wine and coffee. It could be skydiving, adventure vacations. It could be anything that your expert is open to or that you're open to if you're writing it. That really helps people evoke their curiosity and get their heads around what you're talking about.
And the leads have to really grab limited attention immediately. So if you can have a really engaging headline, subject lines in your e-blasts, they're looking at 100 emails in their inbox. So if your subject line stands out, whether it's to the media, story ideas, I mean they love that line, story ideas, they'll tend to open that pretty quickly. Or if it's to other professionals, the 5 ways that you could lose out on a business sale, and they're in the middle of potentially selling their business, okay, they're going to open that.
All right, in our last section here, we wanted to show you some of our purple cows with the purple cow in action. These are tips that come out of some of the ways that we're different from other marketing firms, and we think these can help you a lot as well. And our purple cows include the fact that we're pretty pragmatic people. We like to boil things down to the practical. We know what it's like to work inside a professional services firm. And I snuck in my own cow, which is understanding gamification. So I'm going to give you a little glimpse into game design and how games can help you create better content.
So when we are introducing professionals to this idea of copywriting, to creating content, we are looking for the people in the firm who are the most motivated or hungry. They're really interested in getting out there, being known, being famous for something. So selecting those hungry professionals is a great first start. Scheduling very short brainstorms with a theme or a pain focus. So for example, if you are going after manufacturers as a niche for you, you'd sit down and have a quick brainstorm about some of the pains or themes that would be attractive to them. Create a calendar for yourself so that you know that you're going to schedule every couple months writing something, creating something. Make it reasonable for yourself or for your people to be accountable and to be able to achieve that. Offer guidelines for them on length, topic, audience, the messages that you most want to sell, the services. What are you most trying to do here? And if your people have a guideline for what your goal is, your ultimate goal, then it can help them think a little more clearly about what would appeal to that in terms of topics. If you are getting media opportunities, from magazines or newspapers, then there are clear guidelines that you can look at there as far as length and angle, and letting people know what the key audience is. Most importantly, these last 2 points I want to share, because this is really where Purple Cow can take off. Purple Cow can sprout wings. Every time you get new content, create a system for milking it. So what I mean by that is you have an article that has been created by an expert. Let everyone in your firm know about it, whether you're the one writing it or the marketing person is handling it for the group. Have a system for sharing it so that people know that it's out there. So anyone who is meeting with a prospect or a referral source, they can use that content to further impress your credibility and reputation in a certain area. Providing some sample status updates that people can cut and paste into their LinkedIn to share the information is another great way to expand your audience for the content. And then also find a way to share successes internally. So when you have some great copy out there that gets noticed by a particular audience, if it draws in a client, if an event that you're putting on, a seminar, webinar that you're sharing with people actually gets interest, find ways to share that success internally, because it just builds upon your core hungry group of professionals into other professionals who are still on the fence or who are resistant. So for example, at a law firm that we worked with, we created a poster that showed all of the recent marketing and copywriting and PR efforts of the firm so that everyone was aware of who was doing it, what was happening, who was successful, and it continued to build that culture of people being more interested in being a part of the content creation experience.
Now, sometimes you may be in a position where you've done a lot of the things we already suggested, you've been trying to get people on board, you've been trying to get yourself to write, and it is just not happening. And when that happens, I turn to games. Why do we love games? This is a quote from Jane McGonigal's book, Reality is Broken, where she says, a good game is a unique way of structuring experience and provoking positive emotion. Games can be motivation engines or happiness engines. So if we look at some of the principles of what makes a great game great, you can actually apply them both to motivating yourself and the people around you, and to motivating the people who are going to come consume your content. So here are 4 principles that Jane McGonigal outlines in her book that make games wonderful. The first is they allow us to do satisfying work because it has clear goals and actionable next steps. And you've seen that in some of the content examples we put. You know, when you have next actions for people to take, when you make it very clear for them to find the content they're looking for, that's a great example. And also what Chris pointed out in terms of the way you interact internally. Sometimes when you find yourself stuck trying to create content or motivate people to create content, it's because they don't have those clear goals and actionable steps to make that content happen. Very closely tied to that is the second one, the experience of being successful. You actually get to win at games, which is pretty exciting. Sometimes you lose, but you had a chance to win. So make sure that people have a chance to win, that the people inside your organization know exactly what makes a successful article or makes a successful video. Make that very clear. And in terms of your readers or your users, success for them is finding the answers to their questions. You know, they're reading your article, they're visiting your website, they're going through your brochure because they need something. So make sure that success is really available to them. Social connection is easier than ever these days because we actually have a social media for that. So internally, sometimes it's sitting down for the brainstorm meeting. And sometimes it's like Chris said, having that structure to share out articles that have been published, to say, look what we did. Look what so-and-so over in this practice area got in the magazine. So making sure that you're sharing things socially so that people feel like they're part of that larger group. And then lastly, one of my favorites, meaning. A lot of games have a feeling where you're contributing to something of lasting significance, particularly the larger games. You know, possibly not a game of checkers, but if you play some of the big social games, there is a sense of contributing to something. And I think this is something that we lose sight of a lot of times when we're creating content, is that if you're helping a client solve a problem, you're actually contributing to the health of their business. If you're helping the firm grow, you're contributing to something larger than yourself. So tie in to that sense of meaning when you're motivating people to create content, and also as you're bringing people to consume your content. I thought a great example of that was on that Harrison Pensa homepage that we looked at a few slides back. Their quote is, "We know the legal industry is changing. Let us show you how we're changing it." So they didn't just stick with being a law firm. They're actually tying into the great meaning of changing the legal industry itself. So that's a big meaning play. And I have one other example of some game principles on another law firm website. These red bars slide in and out when you click them, so you've got that nice interactive feel. But you can see this brings together a lot of what we've talked about. They're using emotional language. They're using questions to drive that emotional curiosity. You can clearly see what they want you to click. So there's kind of that game feel of like, here, oh, I should click on this. Oh, I should click on that. And then they are also using some larger meaning and large context concepts like the strength of connection here. They didn't just say, you know, why Sterling signed Sperling, you know, oh, because we do good quality work. They're looking at something larger. They're looking at a larger, more meaningful context.
And I think, Rachel, also the fact that a lot of the professionals we work with, they are not necessarily what you would call extroverts. Some of them are.
Agreed.
Some of them aren't. But even in the next generation, moving into leadership, they're not as interested in the traditional networking ways of bringing in business that some of the current presidents and partners have been used to. And so creating copy is a way to help them contribute to that larger goal of generating business, nurturing leads, being part of building the reputation of the firm. So it's a great inroad when you're helping develop new people to give them this option.
Yes.
Oh, can you contribute to our newsletter? Could you create some e-blasts? Could you, and I know this can work in mentoring programs too between partners and associates or partners and managers to give them this opportunity that they don't know where to start. Here's a place for them to start. Because copy, as I said, can nurture leads and clients. I'm giving you a few final pointers here regarding your copywriting. The main point is that you should always give them something they can do next. When we looked at that website with a lot of different access points, once people move into that next page, whether it's an article or a blog post, is there something you are showing them that they can do next? Keeping in mind how that content plays together is very important. Whether you are putting out a social media status update, are you adding a link to that? Are you providing them with the next step so that they know logically what is next? And this ties into the way search engines are looking at copy. They are looking for those, what they call on-page factors, talking about jargon. But those would be the related articles. If you've read this, you might be interested in this. We have a blog post, but we also have a nearby video, or we have a bio, but here is a way to get to know the person better by looking at their related articles they've written. And so whether it's in web design or whether it is looking at your collateral even too, you provide the website with maybe a particular link that helps you track, you know, once people receive this print material, did they then move to this page and look for more information, which just builds that nurturing of the lead in the client. Look for different ways to capture lead information. So whether it's a download of something and you ask for their email address, look for some of those opportunities to capture new information from new visitors, new people who are visiting pages you've created, either for a direct mail campaign or an ad campaign, for example. And then in this way, it helps your business development people use that content to warm up prospects because they're able to say, oh, I noticed that you recently read this information on our website, or you recently got this direct mail piece and you clicked through and just wanted to follow up with you. It's a great way to start that conversation with new people.
We talked about this some, so I'm just going to leave this here as a list for you to look at. If you haven't looked at your Google Analytics recently, check it out and just see what's getting the most visits. What's your bounce rate? How are people moving through the site?
Bounce rate meaning?
Bounce rate meaning people who came and then left right away. They just looked at your home page or one page and then they left. They bounced off your site. And usually they spend less than 10 seconds. So it means that you were not what they were looking for. And you're not trying to limit that down to 0, but you want it to sort of be in the mid-range, that most people who are coming to your site are finding something that they wanted to find.
You know you are attracting the right audience then with your efforts.
So look at these metrics in Google Analytics, and you can also use them to drive what you create more of. If you notice that there are certain pages that are getting a lot of traffic, cover that topic more often, and put some more pages up about that topic. It is easier than ever to engage human readers and search engine robots at the same time. You want to link to relevant content. They both like that. So as Chris mentioned, here are other articles on the same topic. Here's a video on this topic. Vary the kinds of content you use. And did we mention keywords? We did. So we have a tutorial video online if you want to see how you can use the Google Keyword Tool to find some of those keyword phrases that might be relevant. It's about a 10-minute long video. It just looks at using the tool and then some of the places that you can put those phrases in your content, in your headlines, in your page titles, and those kind of places. So you can check that out. And
if you are not on Ingenious Review as a subscriber, this is another area where you can gather some information about content, about copywriting, about marketing and lead generation. So you can email either myself or Rachel about subscribing to the newsletter, or go to our website and subscribe yourself. In addition, we are also, as of tomorrow, I believe, coming out with an ebook, which is a piece of content that we have created and compiled on lead generation tactics. So if you're looking for ways to better market, to use your copy in ways that attract and nurture leads, this is a new ebook that we're putting out. And so if you are interested, you can certainly email one of us again, and we can provide you with that link when it is available.
Yes, so there's our email addresses, our LinkedIn addresses. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can friend us on Facebook. We're pretty much all over the internet.
Which is part of our content marketing, strategy. So we're really glad that you had time to spend with us today. And if you have any questions, we are definitely available to answer those specifically for you offline. And thank you so much for your time.